else could it be? Duh.
Understood. I will randomly generate a universe for you to explore. Is there anything else I can do for you?
Nah, that's it. Thanks, cube thing.
My pleasure. Enjoy your journey.
Hey, babe. I got a question for you. Why is Eggman always trying to kill Sonic? Like, what is his deal?
I mean, he wants to conquer Earth, and Sonic doesn't want to let him do that.
Is it... I mean, I feel like that's, like, only so much of the broader picture. Like, is Eggman a furry hater? Or, like, do you think he hates furries? Do you think he hates Mobians as a whole? Like, do you think, like, Eggman... Okay, do you think Eggman would be, like, a Republican? Or
I
would
mean,
he...
okay. If you look at, like, the Sonic Heroes handbook, you know, back when
Right.
games had handbooks, right?
Right.
Back when we were kids, they had a little booklet that they came with, and you got the whole game on the disc.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy stuff, right?
I know, right?
Eggman's a feminist, so
Huh.
now, to be fair, that doesn't preclude him from being like
a Republican,
like a right-wing chud, right? Like,
yeah,
like
right,
he can
right.
be that still, while also claiming like the mantle of being a feminist, right?
Right.
I mean, look at TERFs.
That's fair.
They're arguably part of a feminist movement, but they're like also bigoted against transgender people. So like, is Robotnik? I don't know. I think Robotnik wouldn't be like a Republican in the sense that we view them, right?
Right.
Robotnik or Eggman, I guess that's the correct name, but you know, I'm a child of the 90s and early 2000s, so like, to me, it's Robotnik.
Right. I mean,
anyway, I don't think he would be like a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
I think he would be like, he would have some overlapping thoughts with Republicanism. Like, he'd have some authoritarian thoughts. He'd have a lot of like restraint on like personal expression and things of the like, and a lot more like militaristic control of the populace.
Yeah.
Be that by some sort of like jackbooted police force, or he just turns you into a fucking robot or something, because that's what he does.
Yeah.
But as far as like, would he be a Republican? I don't think in the sense that we're thinking, where you think like George W. Bush, right? I don't think he's a George W. Bush.
Yeah.
I think he's like a dictator. I mean, like,
you know, actually, something that you had mentioned to me, something that you had mentioned in regards to like the overall viewpoint, and kind of just to touch on rather to divert the topics for a moment, you had mentioned trans and how Eggman would view trans people, but that kind of touched something in my noggin.
I do have a bit of a take on that, but whatever.
Okay, you do?
Later.
Yeah, okay. Like, I feel if we're gonna go into trans stuff, just to, you know, like I said, I just want to divert into that topic for a minute. Trans people in gaming is something that like I've wanted to discuss for a while. And the reason for that is, in a lot of gaming spaces, and I know you know this feeling that I feel as well, specifically in like voice chat related gaming spaces, I feel like it's incredibly, it's kind of like a bit of social anxiety to deal with, because when you're entering these voice acted spaces, and we had something like this when we were playing that dinosaur game, where we were playing the game and then someone goes like, that's not how you sound.
Yeah, why do you sound like
why
that?
do you sound like that? And stuff like that. And then you encounter stuff like I encountered in VR chat, where you're too good, and then the overall trans community is upset with you. And then I say overall, but it was like one or two people in a specific instance. I shouldn't say overall. But you have instances where there are like trans people saying, "Oh, you worked really hard on that. You did this and that," and that's not like they were saying it almost in a derogatory fashion, like, "Oh, smite me for voice training," which I've never done. I want to put that on the record. I've never once voice trained ever. I just talk like this. Like one day I said, "Hey, I'm doing this whole trans journey. Maybe I should sound a little bit more high pitched." And I just did it. Like you can go to my YouTube channel, Mishelle Gardova. You can quite literally see Luna ain't no fucking like I didn't go through bullshit to get here. I just got here. It's not a big deal, but I'm tangenting. That's my apologies. We were talking about trans people in gaming space. Overall, I feel like trans people in gaming spaces are accepted, but then also not accepted. Like, people are happy that you are who you are in LGBT spaces, but then there's this weirdness that I feel sometimes in LGBT communities where they don't want you like overtly talking about it in such a huge way, or some people get uncomfortable when there's matters that they don't understand that you start talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm of two minds on this, right? So, like, we're, in a way, like, for me, I kind of want, like, the whole transness aspect of my life, almost to be kind of background noise. It's not something that, like, not that I'm not open about or that I'm secretive about. I don't think it's something to be ashamed of or to hide from people, but it's something that I don't want to be like, it's not the center of my personality, you know, and it's not what I'm all about. So I can understand not wanting to always be on about that kind of conversation. But I think what you're driving at is more people who are not necessarily in that realm of transgender experience, who are uncomfortable with certain concepts, like
Right.
maybe some of the societal struggles we face, or maybe like the struggles we face in, you know, as we're talking about gaming spaces. I mean, it's like you might get laughed out of a room if you don't sound up to par, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
I go in with the name Cassie to a room and I sound the way I do, and I don't voice train because it's not like many of my goals as far as transitioning are the alleviating of gender dysphoria, which my voice isn't a cause for. So I don't, while I may modulate my pitch to a point and like I may sort of code switch a little, I don't voice train and don't necessarily intend to do so.
Right.
That said, I'm going on a tangent now because it's my turn. Anyway, I feel like a lot of people don't like to talk about or think about the like socio-political dynamic around existing as a trans person, the type of like societal privilege we may not have, or like how our identities intersect in that way. Like, they don't want to consider that they exist in a position of privilege as opposed to transgender people existing in a position with less societal privilege, because it kind of causes like cognitive dissonance around the concept of like a world that is fair and just. And when like you were born into the the social and political like majority group who broadly has like a degree of privilege
Right.
by nature of that, it can be very uncomfortable and again create like cognitive dissonance where like your brain becomes very uncomfortable with the fact that like you would like to understand that the world is fair and just, but you also may be learning that in a lot of ways it isn't.
Right.
For a lot of people, they're going to shut down and refuse to even accept that that's a possibility. They're going to be like, I'm sure you've heard before, well, what rights are you losing?
Right.
Now, mind you, and this feels a bit tangenty. I feel like we're kind of like all over the place at the moment.
Right?
Okay. But like, mind you, we're in the U.S. There's 23 states where we can't use the proper bathroom. By law, it's illegal for us to use the proper bathroom. We can't get a fucking passport anymore. Like, it's not that hard if you look even at a surface level at what rights are we losing. Now, I did air quotes, but since this is an audio format, you don't see me doing air quotes. But, I feel like maybe it's necessary to mention that we are... we're doing air quotes here.
Right.
We're being a little feisty and ironic.
No, and to be honest, like talking about, because we're kind of getting into like a socio-political kind of scenario here, and that the discomfort and the cognitive dissonance is something that I experience a lot as a Black woman, specifically as a Black trans woman. I have so many quote unquote problems that I'm dealing with, air quotes as well, that I'm dealing with that a lot of people, they find too uncomfortable to even discuss. A lot of people, I'm not gonna, try and marginalize, but like...
Honkies. You're talking about honkies.
I'm talking about certain people.
I can say that, I'm a honky.
I feel like there are certain people who get really uncomfortable with me, and it's crazy because I experience these things every day, and it's not a matter of I'm just telling you guys because I'm victim maxing or anything like that. Like, I just go through this shit. But you'll find, and it really, I'm not saying that Black people and trans people share the same struggles, but what I am saying is the discomfort from those who are not us is the same. People often shut down and clam up because they haven't experienced the suffering we have, and they're quite comfortable. And when they realize that, it's like a reflection on themselves. And a lot of people don't like to look at themselves. People hate looking at themselves.
Not me, I'm extremely vain.
Of course, but a lot of people don't want to look into that metaphorical mirror and realize, wait, no, I'm quite comfortable where I am, and because of that, my viewpoints are adjusted to that. I have to come to terms with the fact that I live a comfortable life, and the reason why I feel the way I do is because I don't actually go through suffering. And that's not to say suffering is such a subjective term, right? Because one could not be suffering from a racial standpoint, but they could be suffering from a financial standpoint. They could be suffering from a domestic standpoint. So a lot of people can go through all forms of suffering, and then that's a thing that they do. But I just feel like there's so much in the world where people get uncomfortable, and what we need to be doing right now is just listening.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of people who are in a position where they may be struggling from like the position of class, right? Because if you don't like own capitalism, you don't own like factories and shit, you don't own production models, you're still the working class. You still have to work to collect a wage to pay for your life. And the vast majority of people do exist under that. And that is like, an intersection of their life wherein they exist at the intersection of class, but they also don't exist at the intersection of like gender or race or like beyond that, gender diversity, where the vast majority of like transgender people, right, exist at the intersection of like class and gender, or class, gender, race, because many of us, or what I should say is, we're statistically more likely to be in a position where we may not be food or housing secure. And so we exist at that intersection too. But a lot of these people who don't exist at the intersection of gender and class may think, oh, well, what do you mean I'm privileged, right? And it's like, it's almost galling to a lot of people to hear that, because it shakes their whole reality. And it's like, what do you mean I'm privileged? I can barely make ends meet. I make $21,000 a year and my rent is $1,600 a month. I can barely eat without and make the rent. So it's very hard to take yourself out of a position, because people are struggling, even if they don't exist at that cross section between like gender or race or neurodivergence. Because if you want to look at like the trans community, a lot of us are neurodivergent.
Absolutely.
It can be kind of galling to hear that, you know, if you're John White guy who works at a landscaping company, right? You don't feel like you're a privileged individual, because broader spectrum, you're kind of not. It's just that you don't live under like broader systems of oppression in terms of like race, gender, etc. I'm kind of yapping and repeating myself though.
I mean it's fine, and
if that tracks.
Right. I feel like ultimately, I'm like, whoa, hey, what is that? Oh my God, hey,
Okay. Where?